This was in the early mid-2000s. I decided to go to the local fire department as a volunteer firefighter. I did it for about 5 years and it was great. Training consisted of 3 months of fire training, 2 nights a week and all day Saturday. And then you would go to EMP training, another 3 months of training. I was about a year and I was asked to help train some new recruits. One of the lieutenants, Amy, was a short, middle-aged woman who was so full of fire she could make a grown man cry. One of those people who commands both fear and respect wherever she goes. Honestly, a great lieutenant and great person. When she wasn't being a drill sergeant, she was extremely kind and generous. She would often bake people cakes and treats and deliver them to the various stations in our department. However, in this new academy class that I was asked to help with, there was a cocky kid that we will call Aaron. Aaron talked big during the training and acted like he was the all-American hero. Like he was going to be the lead badass in Backdraft 2. He performed moderately well in training, but far from the top of the class. He gets assigned to Amy's station, which is a pretty quiet station in the department. A few months after he starts, Amy swings by my station one night to say hi. She brings us the mother-lode cake from Claim Jumper, massive 6-layer cake. She explained that she had treated her crew to a night out at a Claim Jumper, which must have cost a lot of money. I think she took out about 8 people and bought whole cake to top it all off. They had eaten the first 2 layers, so she gave us the remaining 4. We thanked her profusely and she left. Back then, the big social media platform was MySpace, and I decided to look up some of the people in the department to make friends. I came across Aaron's page and I noticed some photos of him and the rest of his crew at Claim Jumper with Amy. However, when I read the comments, he bragged about how he had purposefully ordered the most expensive dinner, appetizers, and drinks since Amy was buying. He bragged about how he was going to take advantage of her stupidity. This alone pissed me off because she was doing this super nice and generous. What an ungrateful, selfish dick. Then I read the rest of his profile. He had videos and memes on his page glorifying himself as a badass firefighter, bragging about running into burning buildings and how he was such a hero. He was flirting with girls, blatantly trying to impress them with how brave he is. Bear in mind, he just graduated from the academy 3 months prior and hadn't even gone to EMP school. He had never been to a house fire, and all he basically did was carry gear for the other fully qualified firefighters. It was too much for me to tolerate. So here is the revenge. I printed off copies of his MySpace page, including his comments about Amy and toxic bragging. I made multiple copies and took them to every station in the department. We all had pagers, God, I'm old, and a small keyboard at each station to send out text messages. I made an anonymous all-staff page to everyone in the department. I had to keep it brief since I couldn't fit a ton of characters, but I sent out his MySpace info and told everyone about how he treated Amy. Within an hour, Aaron had cleared out his MySpace page of all posts, photos, etc. A couple of days later, he deleted his account. It's a good thing I made so many copies. Immediately after this happened, he stopped coming to volunteer, and a few weeks later, I heard that he had quit. I later talked to Amy and admitted I was the one who sent the page. I told her I hated how he treated her, and she thanked me. She seemed really sad and hurt by what he had done. But being the tough, short lady that she was, she quickly got back into being an actual badass firefighter. She later started dating and married a fire chief that also helped at the academy. I've lost touch with her, but I hope she did well. She seemed pretty happy last time I saw her. Dated a guy. 42-year-old, that seemed all charming and lovable. I, 35, was finally glad to find someone so nice, kind, and great. Turned out he was once married, no kids, yet completely separated, confirmed. He has not had a woman except me in his apartment in years. No tracker items belonging to anyone else there, yet. Turned out he was not legally divorced, still married on paper with a foreigner wife he kept around, gave false declaration for her visa, paying all her living expenses and providing her a rental for all the time we've been seeing each other. When confronted, He said he cannot divorce her, and she's a parasitic life form that makes threats, and he's afraid and too weak to handle it. A victim. I found all about her and petty revenge incoming. Wrote to her family she's living abusively and illegally by harassment and extortion, and the police are looking to jail here. I wrote to his family that he's a wounded bird that needs their help and support as he's in a violent and vile situation. As you can imagine, I only uncovered a can of worms, and that, in fact, he lied through his teeth for all these years. Plot twist. The same guy that was getting me Christmas presents in all kinds decided a few days later that I am the parasitic life form destroying his life and apparently his marriage. So, my dear narcissistic friend, I hope you had a crap time this winter break explaining that to your family over Christmas, and I hope you have a great ride with your crazy wife or whatever that is to explain who I was for the past 3 years in your life. I blocked him all over and beyond, and I'm sipping wine now. In school, I was relentlessly bullied. 2 girls in particular had it out for me. I was shy, loved to read, didn't do the popular stuff, so I was the perfect victim. They'd literally torture me by holding me down in the staircase when we were alone and sticking pinboard pins into my arms, legs, and feet. When I tried to tell teachers, they said I fell onto them as they were lying on the floor or I did it myself. It didn't help that one of them was the daughter of one of the teachers at the school. Well, I finally got my revenge. I went to try out a new ice cream shop and behold, one of the girls was serving the ice cream. I have multiple allergies, including milk and gluten, of which the ice cream shop claimed to be cautious. So I ordered gluten and dairy-free ice cream and set my phone camera up to film the area where the ice cream was prepared because I saw that the girl had recognized me and was certain she'd try something. And she did. I caught her on camera putting a spoonful of milk in the bottom of the bowl and crumbling the gluten, consisting wafers over everything, then camouflaging it with the last scoop of ice cream. She put it down in front of me and said, "I hope you enjoy it." I sweetly smiled at her and asked if she could get the owner of the shop because I wanted to thank her for being so welcoming to guests with allergies. You can guess what happened next. I showed the owner the video and told her that I'd like to press charges because in my country, it is considered a criminal offense called inflicting bodily harm to serve someone an allergen when you know the person is allergic. The bully will never work anywhere where she'll come in contact with food again, and she'll have this on her criminal record for years. This story was told to me by my friend Lucy. At the time, she lived in an army town and worked for many summers at a restaurant popular with the officers and their families. At this particular restaurant, which is on the higher end, there's a table reserved for high-ranking officers who visit the base. People who work there refer to it as the table. On busier nights when there isn't a higher-ranking officer in town, it's utilized to seat more patrons, but for the most part, it's left alone. It's Friday, so it's busy. There is a general visiting the base, so the table isn't being used just in case he decides to grace the establishment with his presence. Lucy is manning her section when the owner, named John for the purposes of this story, waves her down. She heads over and he tells her I need you and Annie, another server, to help me man the table. "The general is coming?" she asked. "Nope. Brad is..." Lucy rolled her eyes. Brad was a local bigwig's high school-age son, and he had it in his mind that he was a hotshot. He frequented the restaurant with his girl of the week and proceeded to make a nuisance of himself every time, but not enough to the point that he was asked to leave. Lucy asked, "Are you sure? What if the general wants to eat dinner with us?" At this, John leaned in with a wide smile and said, "Apparently, the general called and told us to give Brad the table and to give him and his guests anything he wanted." Lucy then smiled as she realized what was about to happen. Brad was about to get a serving of malicious compliance on the house. 20 minutes later, Brad, wearing a West Point blazer, arrives with several young people. John makes a big show of greeting them and escorting them to the table. The people look around impressed, and Brad proceeds to command Lucy, John, and Ann around like he owns the restaurant. The only good thing about this particular experience was that, due to him being underage, Brad and his buddies never tried to order any alcohol. Brad proceeded to be a nuisance, demanding more appetizers, sending food back because it wasn't cooked just right, ordering the most expensive entry. On the menu, yada, yada, yada. Lucy, Annie, and John continue with this, smiling as more and more food is added to the table. It's time for the check. Lucy told me that the entire group managed to rack up $843. $29, not counting the mandatory gratuity because the party is above a certain size. Brad gets the bill. And he flips out. What is this? He barked, waving the check. It's your check, John said. The general said to let you order anything you wanted. Brad stands up to argue. And that's when the host rushes up, her face white. John, the general is here. Shh, he whispered. Everyone turns to look, and there's the general with his entourage. John excuses himself before going over. He and the general start to talk for a few minutes. And Lucy notices Brad turning white and starting to get out of his seat. Annie looked at him and said, "You better not try a dine and dash." She said, "I really don't want to have to sick these nice officers on you." Brad sat down and fidgeted. John and the general come back to the table. Making eye contact with Brad, John said, "Brad, you said the good general here insisted you have the table and that you can order anything you want. Is this true?" He only nodded. "Well, the general here said that he never made any such phone call." "That's odd," Brad said before looking at the general. "I'm pretty sure it was you I talked to." Sir. I have the phone number." "Let's call it," John said, pulling out his cell phone and dialing a number. That's when they hear Brad's brand new cell phone going off in his pocket. The general held his hand out and Brad put the phone in his hand. He checks the number and asks John, "Is your number 123, 456, 7,890? "It is," John said. The general then proceeded to get a serious look on his face. "Brad, are you a cadet?" "I'm being considered for an appointment," Brad said. The general nodded. "I suggest you pay your bill, tip in full, and apologize to the staff for your behavior." He said to Brad. "I also suggest withdrawing your name as soon as possible to save yourself the embarrassment." Keeping his head down, Brad paid the bill, meekly apologized, and left with his sycophants. The general and his entourage patiently waited for the table to be cleared and set. They proceeded to have a nice meal, leaving a generous tip and apologizing for people like Brad. Lucy proceeded to have a wonderful Brad-free career.